Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Save the Franchise. We're a football podcast. We're going to be talking about the NFL. We're going to be talking about team building strategies, roster construction, where to spend cap resources, draft picks, things like that. We might branch out a little bit further than that. Might include some fantasy topics and things, but we'll see where it takes us. We're excited to get this rolling. I'm Keegan Fisher. Let me introduce my co-host Tyler Muchnick.
Yes, I'm Tyler Muchnick. As we could go over what teams we're a fan of too, just to get that out. Yeah, I'm an Eagles fan, born and raised Central Jersey, and of course Keegan is a Chiefs fan from Kansas City.
Yeah, congratulations on the Super Bowl win. We'll get you next year.
We'll see.
We do have a second co-host. His name's Austin Schumacher. He's a Patriots fan, so I think you know. Anyways, but no, he couldn't join us at the start of this episode. Hopefully, he'll make it in at some point. But I'm sure you'll see more of him in the future. If people are interested in listening to our takes and all that, we look forward to that. But primarily, this is really just a space for us to kind of have some really good football conversation and all that. But we'll see where it takes us. So today we're talking how would you rebuild teams that we think have kind of been in the weeds for a little while, need to take a different direction with their organization. We're going to be talking about the path they've already taken and maybe some steps that we think they should take in the future to kind of get rolling and get find their way to Super Bowl contention. So, first team we got up today, we got the Seahawks. Not a bad team by any means. This is not a, dumpster fire of an organization that's been terrible for years and years or anything. But they've really been out of Super Bowl contention for quite a while now, despite throwing quite a few things at the wall to see what sticks. So we're just gonna start off. Tyler, can you talk a little bit about your overall feeling with the Seahawks? And what do you think their timeline is to compete if they really start getting things rolling in the right way?
Yeah, so Seahawks made the decision to just like stir the pot and switch up the QB, which was an interesting move. Me personally, I really don't think it elevates the team's ceiling, but I think it's actually good that they're making progress and trying to change things up. And as it currently stands, I really don't see a path to contention as they're currently built with the current roster, unless Sam Darnold plays like he did the first couple weeks in Minnesota. Everything else starts to click too, and maybe Cooper Kupp is still has some juice left in him. We shall see about that. But I think with this current roster, you do have a young defensive core that has a lot of athletic upside, especially in the corner room. I mean, you got Witherspoon and you got Eman Worry, some huge RAS guys right there. And I do like the young core, but I do still think there's a lot that needs to be torn down. But I think they could come back in. I think 3 years is reasonable. I even think if they make even like a couple splash moves, hit on if Zabel pans out well, I think they could be in contention in 2 years.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think people often underestimate the impact that, quick turnaround, how fast you can have a turnaround in the NFL. I think I like Mike McDonald as a head coach if Clint Kubiak comes in as the OC and he's the new OC this offseason. If he can come in and really kind of transform how that offense wants to play, I think there's a really easy path to them seeing, with a couple splash additions, if Darnold pans out, like it could turn around in about 2 years. You've got enough really quality players like that. The defense is very well built. You've got solid players all across the board. I think the question there is where are your blue chips, where are your serious impact players? Just how good can Devon Witherspoon be? Can Eman Worry be another impact player for you? Those sorts of things. You don't have a true blue chip rushing talent. I wouldn't say like Leonard Williams is very good, but there's some question marks there. And so yeah, I think reasonably quick time to compete, but you need some things to fall the right way for sure. And there's definitely some uncertainty with the staff. Um, Tyler, did you like the offseason? Did you think they were traveling in the right direction or no?
I overall did like the moves. The QB one, I still don't think was the greatest decision for trying to win now or in the future, but it changes things up. It could work out. But overall, I do really like their draft. I mean, Zabel, he looked incredible. And or was it Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl? What it
I think he was
was
in the Senior Bowl.
okay, yeah, at the
Yeah.
Senior Bowl. Scouts loved him there. Yeah, taking interior O-line into first round,
Hmm.
never the greatest move, but I think the chance of him being a blue chip player is so high.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of really do like what they did. The Cooper Cup trade is another big one that they did.
Hmm.
I think it helps them immediately just from the fact that Tyler Lockett was getting up there in age. He's still a free agent, I'm pretty sure. But
Yes, Tyler Lockett is still available on the market.
yeah, but yeah, he wasn't part of a long-term future.
Yeah.
Uh, the DK trade, I feel like they actually got good value for it.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a direction I would have personally gone though with them.
So yeah, when I look at this offseason, I thought the DK trade was great. I thought that was great. I thought the draft for the most part going in the right direction. I didn't love Zabel, but they needed to commit some resources to the interior of the O-line. And when you find a guy who you are sure is going to be a blue chip talent in that interior and possibly really transform the zone run game you're going to move to in the Clint Kubiak system, I see the path. I see the benefit. It's a high floor pick. It's just it's limited in ceiling, but you could do a lot with a player like that who can move the way he does. Um, but I would fail them on this offseason. I don't think that moving off Geno for Sam Darnold made any sense. And the reason is this: you're still and I understand Sam Darnold's on a 1 year contract, so you have more like if you had signed Geno, you would have been a little bit more locked into him long term. But I kind of think that's how far they are out, anyways. And when you're looking at the quarterback position, you don't get unless if you were saving massive amounts of cap space, you're not typically getting good value by swapping out your near top 10 quarterback for a probably 20th at best quarterback, unless if it really was all him in Minnesota, but I think that's pretty hard to project and see. Um, and so when I look at that, I think all you're doing is hurting your ability to maintain good football and keep a good culture going on the team, which is the path I see for them. I think you've got too much talent around on the team and too many of your future pieces already on the roster to just go and tear this thing down and start all over again. And so I think you need to keep the culture rolling so that you've got good culture with those players and those players are happy to be here and take it from there. And so when I look at it, I don't think Darnold gives you near as good of an ability to do that as Geno did. So
However, I think a counter argument for that is Kubiak got the experience Darnold when he was in San Francisco. There must have been some leadership traits that he saw in him, or just football traits that he valued. And I don't know if they were going to bring in Kubiak, he did get some head coach hype early on. Obviously, after the Saints, like Jeremy Lin run,
yeah,
he got some. He was seen as like the premier head coaching candidate. People were saying they would take him over Ben Johnson, which is
yeah,
crazy in retrospect.
right.
But
I
he
was
still
very reactionary there, but
they got him to take like an almost lateral move though. I guess the Seahawks are a better team than the Saints, but they got him to. It's still a lateral move.
yeah, I
He
don't
might
know.
have won his QB.
I think there's definitely a world in which Clint Kubiak kind of surfaces as a really talented OC, and he's a head coach in a few years, and he's doing cool things to the Seahawks. I still don't. I really struggle to see the reality in which we view him as better than Kevin O'Connell, and
Sure.
you definitely have significantly worse weapons than the Vikings, and I think it's pretty reasonable to go ahead and state that across the board the Vikings O line is better than the Seahawks O line. Unless if Zabel is just absolute superstar from day one, and even then that's just one of your interior guys. And the O line in Seattle's not terrible, but man, Darnold playing as good, even Darnold just playing as good as he did last year in Minnesota, I think would be fairly shocking. That's a hard projection to
Yeah.
make. All right, let's real quick. Let's roll through a couple big time players and where we see them. We're just going to go quickly. Or is this long term, or are we going to ditch them at some point to build a contending run? Darnold.
Hmm. I think Darnold, it really depends how he looks. If Seattle finishes where I think they will, somewhere between 7 and 9 wins, they probably keep him again for another year. But then at that point, I think they get fed up and move on from him after that.
Yeah, I don't think he's part of the long term contention plan. Charles Cross. This is an easy one.
So yeah, he is. He actually might be able to get a discount right now because I don't know how he's viewed in league circles because he is a. I mean, he's still getting tackle money, but I think they could extend him for closer to 20 million side than 30 million side, which I think is just a no-brainer.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think you honestly are hoping that, in terms of him, like, he doesn't necessarily look out of this world the next couple of years, and you can kind of get him at a little bit of a below market rate, and then when the team really comes together and the vibes are all there and the chemistry's there, then he starts playing like that elite pass protecting superstar. But yeah, no, I think definitely he's part of the long term plan for this team. Absolutely. How do you feel about Witherspoon?
I do like him long term. I just think his ability to care so much about run defense as a corner is something that we don't see often, and I guarantee McDonald loves him. I think he's part of a long term, even though he is a corner.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think so. I think Witherspoon is McDonald's chess piece. I think this is the guy who's going to tie everything together, allow him to play in a very versatile scheme, move players around. I do think I'd like to see him play in the slot a little bit more, but I think he's absolutely part of the long-term future. Regardless of whether or not it's the smart move or not, he's going to be there. But I do think I agree with McDonald's philosophy and all that, and keeping him and making him a pretty significant piece of the defense. Okay, how do you feel about 30-year-old Leonard Williams?
I mean, he had an incredible year last year, but I mean, he's in a position where the fall off usually happens about 30 to 31, 32, and it usually happens pretty fast. I think I don't think that he signs another contract with them.
Okay, yeah, I think if you can get him at, in a contract where you're kind of playing him along year by year, I could definitely see it. It's hard to let good pass rushing talent go. So I could see you wanting to keep him around, but if we're right about this being more of a 2 year development into the next window, like him being 32 going into that, I don't love it. I don't think he's one of your key Super Bowl contention pieces. Um, Anyone else you want to bring up, or should we move it on to the Jets?
Just one more thing. Will Cooper Cup be on a team at the past the trade deadline?
All right, great question. Um, you know what? I actually think Cooper Cup's gonna have a really solid Adam Thielen and Carolina sort of year. Um, Maybe the injuries derail that, but I think if he plays, and so I know that's a big caveat, but I think if he plays, he's going to have something similar to what we saw out of Thielen the last couple of years in Carolina, where he's just really damn smart and he knows how to get open. And I think Seattle's realistic enough, at least, to not be asking him to be the focal point and really try to break down defenders consistently. And so I think, yeah, something where teams maybe aren't as focused on him and he's not the focal point. I think you could see, something like Thielen in Carolina. So I think he would be on the team past the trade deadline.
I just think if he is that, I think a team might want to snag him. You know, a lot of
I
teams might
don't.
need
I
a
think that
slot.
I don't think the Seahawks are realistic enough about their current status. Or I don't think that lines up with their philosophy. I don't think if he's playing well that they're gonna ditch him.
Well, yeah, they'll probably be in a playoff race with that division being fairly weak,
Hmm.
or it's not really weak. It's just competitive. It's close. All the
Hmm.
teams are about that 7 to 11 win. So yeah, they'll still be in it probably at the trade deadline.
Right. I agree. Okay, let's move on to the Jets. Go ahead and give us your overall feeling and kind of what you think that time to compete is.
So I've been very critical on the Jets the last couple of years. I think they made a lot of stupid
Hard
moves,
not to be, yeah.
but however, I think they finally are starting to turn a corner. They got a new GM. I really did like the first round
Hmm.
of the draft, doubling up on tackles in back-to-back years.
Love it.
Uh, they still haven't sold. anywhere near as much as I think they probably should on the defensive end. But I mean, they still have a bunch of young, good players on that roster. And if they do nail the QB, I, me personally, I really don't think it will be Fields. But if they do, I think they're possibly like, if Fields is, I think they're only a year out. Like,
I mean, I think that's totally fair. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I think I typically agree with what you're saying. I love the renewed interest in the trenches that's occurred the last 2 years. It's awesome. Before that, they were picking some defensive ends that I didn't really love in the first round. Lighter guys, and I don't think they're going to mesh very well with Glenn's new system. Aaron Glenn coming in as the head coach this offseason. And so I'm fairly iffy on that defense's fit with him. I think you got big corners and guys who could theoretically play some man, but on the other hand, you've got a lot of light defensive line pieces that I don't really love. You don't have a great defensive tackle outside. Well, so they added Noddy in the offseason, but I wouldn't characterize him as great. Like I don't think you have the guy next to Quinnen Williams to kind of play the way Glenn is really going to want to play. All that being said, I think they're in a really good spot. As long as they manage this properly, I think you're looking at the window is just whenever they get a quarterback. Now, I think the key landmines is on that defensive side of the ball. I don't think they necessarily had to fire sell it. I think I'm coming around on that. A while back, my case was kind of like a lot of these pieces are not going to be around by the time you're ready for Super Bowl contention. I think you just need to be really careful about what contracts you hand out to those stars on the defensive end, on the defensive side of the football. I mean, like, because if you start paying Sauce ridiculous amounts of money, and then you pay one of those linebackers, and then you pick up a safety in free agency who's not necessarily everything's cracked up, like you're starting to spend a ton of your cap space on that defensive side of the ball. And I think that's where you start getting in a tricky situation with that defense. Right now, you still got quite a few cheap pieces over there, and so it's just about navigating that. All right, we've talked about the offseason a little bit, but did you like it? What do you think about the hires and the draft picks and all that?
I think the hires were okay. The Glenn hire is still interesting. I do like it overall. I think there were better options out there, but I also think there was a lot worse, which is what I was kind of expecting them to
Hmm.
do. Like, I think Glenn will bring somewhat of a culture shift to the team, which is what they need. They've
Hmm.
been 14 years without the playoffs, 13 years,
Yeah,
whatever it was. Like, most of these players haven't even sniffed the playoffs who are in it right
right.
now, and they need a guy coming fresh off Detroit. Not the most playoff success there, but that locker room is pretty inspirational, in my opinion. And you could bring some of that energy to the New York Jets. And
Hmm.
they said he's not even going to be the X's and O's guy there.
Right.
He'll help out. He better help out. But he should help out.
Yeah,
But you got Glenn to be that culture guy.
yeah,
And I did like that a lot. Going into the draft, first round, absolutely loved taking Membu
yeah.
there. I feel like the draft kind of just went their way in that
Mhm. Oh yeah,
aspect.
I
They
think
were able to
Membu
sit there.
easily could have gone and probably should have gone higher.
Yeah, and they got him at pick 7,
Yeah,
and that was really good.
and really really good for them for not trading up after Campbell went, because they could have panicked and tried to go up to 5, and make sure that they got the tackle, but they stuck it in and they nailed it.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna take Warren. Like I legitimately
Yeah,
thought that. Like it's historically a move that they would have made
yeah,
in the past under the old regime, and seeing that, and then not take him actually made me smile because yeah, it was
mhm,
unexpected. I
yeah,
mean, okay, I think almost any other person on the planet probably would have made the tackle move, but
right. This is the
I
Jets though. I
this is the
mean,
Jets.
yeah.
So and
So yeah,
free agency. They didn't really make uh that many major signings. I
which I
do like
loved.
Cisco.
I
I did,
loved.
yeah. I did like they got Cisco for pretty cheap. I think there's some upside there.
I think
And
paying Jamie and Sherwood $45 million over 3 years was uh, a little bit
yeah,
problematic, but I get what I get saying he's our culture piece, he's our culture edition. Like I need this guy to transform the mentality on the defense. the way I want to. So if that's the case, I'm on board. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, when I look at this team and I look at this offseason, I see all the things I would have done if I was them for the most part. I see a really good philosophy unfolding. They were careful in free agency. They were smart draft picks. Grabbing good value for the most part, in my opinion. Although I think they went a little bit off the deep end in day three. But if that's your big mistake of the offseason, I think you'll be okay. That's very recoverable. And, I mean, a lot of those picks are lottery picks, anyways. Now, all this has to come with the massive caveat of Jets ownership. This offseason has not looked like Jets ownership is in control at all, but that could always change. I think they're obviously a very mercurial, very hot-headed group that makes decisions from the hip often. I think if you get off to a little bit of a bad start this season, you get a few games in, they might start thinking, oh, maybe Glenn's not everything we were told he was. Maybe we should start doing some moves and take control. And so I think that's really the question. Is I feel pretty good. I feel like this was an A off season, a really high quality, good decision making off season. I think all that kind of goes up in smoke, and the relevance is not really there if we look back in a year and the ownership started making decisions again,
Yeah.
and so if what's classically been occurring in this front office starts occurring again, and Glenn and the new GM start to kind of lose control, it's the same old Jets. There's nothing that's gonna be able to as good. It doesn't matter. It won't matter how good Glenn is. It didn't matter. Saleh was not really the dictating piece of that previous Jets regime. So that's my big caution warning sign. But there's a lot to be happy about this offseason. So you want
Oh yeah.
to go ahead and we've kind of already talked about the coach in the front office. You want to let's talk some big time players. Um,
Okay.
like let's just start with Quentin Williams. How do you feel about him? Is he part of the long term contention plan? What do you think?
I think it really matters what direction you want to take it for him because obviously he's an elite pass rushing interior alignment in his prime. Like that's something that's invaluable for contending teams. But also I think 27.
Hmm. Yeah, 27. Yep.
Yeah, his fall off could be in 3 years. We really don't know. He could be great until he's 34.
Yep.
It really matters. If you are trying to turn around in 1 year, I think you keep him. But if you're
Hmm.
really trying to build like a long-term team, completely reset, I think this is the perfect time to trade him.
Yeah. I think he's a tricky question because, like I said, I think the window is when you get the quarterback. The team is mostly ready. You just need to keep it in a status quo sort of thing. Like I think building it kind of like, or you're planning this kind of like Alex Smith Chiefs moving into Mahomes. Obviously, that's a very high end example,
Yeah.
but having a good culture roster, a high quality roster with plenty of high end talent, and then eventually finding the quarterback to drop into that, I think is the way you're going to have to play this with the current structure of the team. And so I think it's a really difficult situation to be in with Quinnen, in that you don't know when you're going to be able to make that quarterback move, and and that's the thing you really I would need to know in my opinion to inform whether or not you want to keep rolling with Quinnen or if you want to cash out. So, all right, how do you feel about Sauce Gardner?
Uh, well, it matters. If you asked me this like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, I probably would have said, yeah, keep him long term. But after seeing that Stingley contract at 30 million per year, he's gonna get that. I don't really know.
If we're waiting another offseason, I think he's gonna get that and
Even
a lot
more,
more.
yeah. Yeah. It's I think they might have missed their window on it.
Yeah,
And
I think you probably needed to pay him before Stingley, and I don't really blame them for that. New regime coming and all that, trying to get their bearings set and everything. But yeah, so the other thing is I don't know that he fits in Glenn's scheme all that well. I know he can play man and he has the athleticism too, but I think he plays much better in press zone and off zone than he does in especially like man to man. Although I will say Glenn has kind of really push this form of defense where he plays man, but they'll switch on crossers and things, which I think is Sauce's weakness in man-to-man coverage. And so I think you could potentially roll with him in that. So I'm really fascinated to see how that works out, and maybe that kind of dictates whether or not he's a valuable enough piece to kind of keep going in the Glenn system. But I think probably not a Super Bowl contending piece just based off the pricing and the market. Not necessarily off his talent. Um, let's see here. Uh, any other any other big time players you think could kind of go either way? You want to talk about?
Brees Hall's another one that I think a little bit up there
Yeah.
at running back. I mean, he obviously has shown he is an above average running back and
Yep.
even has the high level speed,
Right. So you can grab
explosive
those explosives.
playability.
Yep. Yep.
It's just the injuries with him, the
Mentality.
mental, yeah, I've never seen a player actively tweet out against their coaches on a regular basis, but he does. Me personally, I actually think I wouldn't pay him. I don't think it's worth it.
I don't think he's quite in the talent class to justify. I don't know. Maybe you get him on a big value contract, and you're really not paying him that much. But I think probably not a guy you want to stick around long term. All right, moving on. Let's hit the Cardinals. And just take us through what are you feeling about the Cardinals? Do you like the window to compete? You think they're close, or do you think it's a little bit further out?
I think it's a little bit further out because they still need to completely change both of their lines, in my opinion. Like the O line, when you look at it, so they have Paris Johnson. They have one franchise tackle. The interior guys are really not there. They are really not there. I think they need at least 2 to 3 new interior O linemen. And Jonah Williams at right tackle is still a question mark.
Yeah,
Can he go back to his old form?
yeah.
It's hard for me to consider a team even close to contending when their O line looks like that.
Hmm.
And even the D line, you do have Josh Sweat, who, as an Eagles fan, I love over time, and I think they got him on an amazing contract too.
Yeah, I was impressed. Yeah.
I thought he was going to get 24, 23, getting him for 18, 19,
I
whatever
thought
it
he was gonna
was.
be closer to 30, to be honest.
I won't even be, yeah, I don't even think 30 for him is a bad contract. He's been a Pro Bowl caliber edge for 3, 4 years. It's
Yeah, I think
crazy
as
how
long
cheap
as you
they got him.
structure the money right, it's not that unreasonable in this climate. So yeah,
It's just, I think there's a lack of talent on those lines to really be able to compete with even the Rams. Like,
yeah.
so I think 4 years for them if they play the cards right.
So when I look at this team, my biggest question mark is where is the transformative blue chip playmaking? Gotta have it stars. I don't think you have one right now. Maybe Buda Baker at a low value position, maybe, but I think he's kind of fallen off from that. And then so maybe Paris Johnson turns into that. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. turns into that, but I think we're a little worried about the upside of Harrison Jr. in the NFL in terms of being like a game breaking talent. I struggle. I struggle with the idea that you're going to be able to acquire those guys. I mean, those are hard to find if you're not consistently picking the top of the draft, and they've done enough that they're not probably picking in the top five again, unless if they have a real terrible season, a really unexpected season. And so I don't know how you're going to get the hands on that. And then I go and look at the quarterback with Kyler Murray, and I like a lot of what Kyler can do, and I think he provides sparks that a lot of those mid-range quarterbacks, that you're questioning whether or not they could go to a Super Bowl. I think he provides a lot of sparks that they can't. The consistency is rough though, and I think you're fairly siloed into a specific form of offense, and I think you're always going to have to tolerate his unwillingness to throw, over the middle of the field and really fully utilize players like Marvin Harrison Jr. And so I kind of think this team needs a serious makeover and just take those young pieces, keep developing them. But I think you need to kind of bulldoze this and move on. So, did you like the offseason? What did you think about it?
So obviously, I already mentioned earlier, I think the Sweat signing was really good.
Yeah,
I really did enjoy their draft. they really did draft high upside because that's pretty much what you said.
Hmm.
The team lacks these absolute blue chip star players, and
Yeah.
they went out there and were like, "We'll take Walter Nolan. His
Hmm.
upside is higher than almost anyone in this draft class.
And,
We'll
and I
take
think that's fair. Yeah.
Will Johnson. Like, we'll
Yeah.
take if lateral quickness isn't an issue, you've got the best corner in the draft. It's really I don't know. I think they really did a lot of stuff well in the offseason. I do kind of wish they make a coaching change. Maybe this is just my Eagles bias a little bit, but if Jonathan Gannon's supposed to like he's not a scheme guy. He's a guy you're building for culture, and they don't have a winning culture. It's
Yeah.
like I think Gannon could have been good if the team instantly turned it around, but obviously that isn't happening. So, and
Yeah.
their offensive scheming is very lackluster. I think they should be a team that fires their head coach and tries to get one of those young up and coming play callers because maybe they can get more out of Kyler than what we're currently getting.
Yeah. I think I might be a little too low on the offseason just because I'm kind of just so with where the team overall is at and where the trajectory's at. So maybe I'm penalizing the offseason a little bit too much, and that that's why. But I just look at it and I'm like, this doesn't do that much for me. Like maybe Walter Nolan does it. I don't really see it. I like him. I like him. I'm pretty worried about him developing into a really solid, not just really solid. I should say a game breaking sort of player. And so, yeah, when I looked at it, I don't love it. The I think I agree with Gannon. I've never been the biggest Gannon fan. I think in Philly he had a lot to work with, pretty pretty elite high level pass rush, and
72
you
sacks.
but I think when the pass rush didn't work, he didn't really have an answer. It was just we're playing drop back zone. The pass rush is going to win this for me, and there wasn't another twist or turn or anything to make up for that. So, yeah, I'm thinking this is if he really it's hard for us to say, but if the feeling in the building is pretty good about him, I think you can absolutely use him as your bridge coach. To keep rolling things until you feel like you're ready to turn it over to another coach because the roster's now moved over enough. But yeah. All right, let's just roll through a few big time players real quick. Kyler, long term part of the Super Bowl window or not?
I don't think so.
Okay. I agree, definitely. I think your young pieces, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Paris Johnson, obvious,
Yeah.
easy. These are franchise building blocks, even if you're not necessarily getting quite what you thought out of Marvin Harrison Jr. How do you feel about Josh Sweat? Do you think that's gonna be good long term? Do you think he can last till the next Super Bowl window?
So he's 28 and has always he had injury issues in high school, which is the
Hmm.
whole reason why he was never a first round pick. He's dealt with injuries early on in his career. I don't know how he's going to hold up over time. And if they're not winning the next 3, 4 years, he'll be 32 by then.
Hmm.
And I don't think he is.
Yeah. Buda Baker.
I think he should have been traded 2 years ago, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you missed your window to really capitalize on that value. They weren't using him. They needed to ditch him. All right, and the last one, I think we both agree. Jonah Williams need to be looking to upgrade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. That was a good one. Let's move on to the Giants, one of the most embattled franchises in the NFL. They just can't seem to figure it out at quarterback. They're clawing their way. I gotta say I feel for them because I think they've really been trying to trade for Stafford, trying to move up last year in the draft, and just get May or Daniels or one of those guys, and just couldn't figure it out. And yeah, so how are you feeling about the Giants, and where do you think this window is sitting?
Well, it really comes down to the same thing it has for them over the last decade, which is the QB. Can they get the QB? Can Jackson Dart be that guy? Like, obviously, Jackson Dart looked good in college, but he was playing in a Lane Kiffin scheme that is very simple, very easy decisions he has to make. Tough competition, I'll give him
Hmm.
that. He did have to play it like in the SEC. Like a lot of QBs in the Jackson Dart lane are mostly ACC QBs who
Right.
obviously aren't that good.
Yeah, he's
But
going to have less of a difficult time adjusting to the speed of the NFL. Less of a difficult time, but yeah.
well, you saw the SPS score data for him. That's like one thing that they do for like
Yeah.
analyzing smart plays. So he got the highest score all time in that. And if you look at the guys who scored high in that, like Lamar was the previous highest. Hertz, I think, was up there. Mahomes is up there. It was a list like there was positive correlation there. Maybe I'm not completely out on Dart, but I
I
think
think
it's
the real question that's so hard and kind of impossible to answer is like how much was that Lane Kiffin just absolutely out scheming his opponents and presenting it in a way that Jackson Dart could really wrap his head around, and how much was it Jackson Dart making that scheme work, making that scheme so potent?
hmm. Yeah, that's something we'll find out. Well, maybe not this year because I don't think he touches the field this year for the Giants.
Really? You don't? Okay.
I think they fully roll on with Russ. I think the plan with Dart was not to play him at all this year. Even if there's an injury, I think they would go to Jameis.
Okay, so my personal theory here, and maybe this changes with how they play in camp, right? But my personal theory here is that, well, one, I think they had to draft a quarterback. I think there was a mandate from ownership to draft a quarterback. But when I look at trying to keep their jobs, they are Brian Dable and it's Joe Shane, right? Are teetering.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are teetering on the edge of a cliff. They are this close from being fired. I kind of think that the idea is that they're going to play Russ, and if Russ doesn't work out, they're going to switch to Dart, and they're going to hope and pray that they get flashes out of Dart and they can say, hey, we developed him, we had him behind Russ, we decided it was the time to bring him in, we got these pop plays, look at this, look what we can do, think about what will happen if you give us another year to work on this quarterback that we've developed and we're giving you these flashes with. I kind of think because the roster's so bad, that's their best chance at like long term, staying in the job or at least buying
Yeah.
another year. And so I kind of do think Jackson Dart hits the field this year.
Yeah, if he does, I am interested to see how he does look
It's gonna be a
because
fascinating case study. Yeah.
the O line obviously is not great,
Hmm.
but healthy, they could be serviceable. I feel like still. Maybe Evan Neal is gone at this point, but
That is an enigma right there.
yeah, Andrew Thomas has played like a premier tackle before. Uh, I know they got John Michael Schmitz last year, who did struggle as a rookie, but he's still young and interior O lineman drafted high. He could have a second year. Like I don't think their O line is atrocious,
Hmm.
not good. And you have Malik Neighbors, who's a generational receiver, who's
Oh
so
my
easy to
God.
throw to.
Yeah.
Like,
They asked him to carry the offense, to be not just the focal point, but like a Michael Thomas sort of fixated, make everything go sort of target in year one, and he did it. And I, man, not only is he able to play that possession type receiver role and really take that volume, but once you get more weapons on this team, he has deep threat ability and he has run after the catch ability to take anything to the house. I, I don't think it would be that shocking if Malik Neighbors was viewed as the best wide receiver in the NFL 2 years from now. I don't think that's that surprising.
I would probably take him third in fantasy this upcoming year, just because of situation and like talent. I
I,
think it's a combination of both of them.
I think it's pretty hard to make the case of passing on. I think I like Jefferson and Chase above him, obviously, and then I don't think I'm passing on Saquon to take
Oh, I
Neighbors.
meant top three receiver.
Okay, there we go. I could,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was.
I'm on board with that. I'm on board. Yeah, I think it's easy. I think it's reasonable to make the case that he surpasses CD and Amon Ra this year. So yeah, yeah.
And we do need to talk about the Giants D line for a second.
All right.
Because,
Real quick, let's just address what sort of timeline do we think we're on, and then yeah, let's segue into that defense.
okay, so timeline. Uh, well, I think for them it's 2 years. Genuinely, I think it is pretty quick, just from the fact that they have the D line. They need to turn up the secondary. They need to tune up the secondary, get some more quality players there.
Well,
But if
unlike a lot of these teams, they have the blue chips. Like
they
you've
do,
got the couple
yeah,
game breaking players that you need.
yeah. they do have a blue chips, and yeah, the O line still needs some improvements, obviously, but they don't need to reinvent the wheel for
No,
them.
yeah, I agree. 2 year window that feels about right. I I honestly think if everything pans out this year, and then you have a solid to very good offseason next year, you could be a playoff team, but not a Super Bowl contending team next year. You know, um, I think it's just a little hard to see getting past getting up to competitive levels with the Eagles and Lions just next year, but 2 years out for sure. So yeah, let's talk this offseason and how that ties in with what they did on the defense and in particular that defensive line.
So yeah, getting Abdul Carter first off, obviously he was the obvious pick there, and they
Oh
didn't
yeah,
screw it up. But wow, that dude I think can change almost any team, and they wasn't like they were already struggling on a D line. I think he makes their D line actually look like how it's supposed to. So you have Dexter Lawrence, who I think is either the best or second best defensive tackle in football. Uh, it's either him or Jalen Carter, but he's probably more complete than Jalen Carter is currently, just because his run defense is ridiculous. You have Brian Burns, who didn't have the greatest season, but he's a great run defender. He can rush the passer. Yeah, he can rush the passer. Uh, yeah, no, it's that D line is exciting.
yeah. It could be a high level unit, and it could go win them games this year potentially. Now, I say that when their schedule is pretty rough. I think
It is.
it's a pretty bad hand to be dealt when you're in this sort of situation as a staff and at this point in the franchise. So I think you need a lot outside of that D line, but they could enable you to go beat up some of those teams that are probably better than you on the whole. And if they beat the Commanders once this year because the D line just goes out and makes that offense really, really difficult to run, and then they win a tight game at the end, I think that's totally plausible if the D line reaches the heights we're thinking of. So yeah, how did you feel about the safety addition? So they ditched Xavier McKinney the previous offseason, and we kind of felt the lack. We kind of felt
Yeah.
the hole there, and then they go out and they get the Dolphins safety this offseason. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like the move, obviously, because yeah, McKinney had one of the best safety seasons in the league last year for Green Bay.
It was
He
a
was,
big middle finger to the Giants.
and the truth was, like, he didn't even sign for that much money either. Like, I think he was like 14 million a year, which I guess is a little bit pricey for a safety, but McKinney was 24, I think, at the time of free agency.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt your wallet
Eh,
too much.
But Javon Holland's another younger safe. He's a little bit older, but he's not really old. He's still in his prime. Has shown upside over the years. I think it instantly raises the defense's floor.
Now, what I'm not sure about is whether or not they can compensate enough for the cornerback core. And so I mean, when that paired with with a linebacker room that I don't love, I just I think you're gonna have a little bit of a difficult time covering the short to intermediate parts of the field, which means that you're gonna have a difficult time fully utilizing the pass rush. And so that's my worry on the defensive side of the ball that could really hold them back from kind of having a high level season on the defense and really kind of carrying the offense. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I still do have some hope for Deontay Banks. He looked
Mhm.
good as a rookie. I loved him as a prospect at Maryland. I know last year the tape does not look good. He looks a little bit slower. There could be an injury that we did not really fully know about, but it's just weird to see a player regress like that after 1 year. But even without him, that cornerback room's still very weak.
I
And
Yeah. I mean, even if you project, even if Deontay Banks comes out here and he plays not like a blue chip, but he plays like a true corner one, you're happy for him to be your top guy. Your corner two is Paulson Adebo, who I don't hate, but like I'm kind of iffy about him even being a corner two. And then your nickelback's Drew Phillips, and you've got a bunch of other players, bodies on the roster. I don't really,
yeah, and the
I
division too. You have to remember you have to go against the Eagles who have yeah, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. Cowboys got CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Even Washington has, well, I guess Debo's not the toughest guy to guard one on one, but I don't, I would not trust any Giants corner on Debo even and Terry. Like,
I think one injury to one of those three starters, and you're starting to look at a defense that or a defensive back room that is just it is too difficult to really get past it and compensate. So all right, we talked about the defense quite a bit. How do you feel about the coach in front office? Do you think this is like this has been a big debate? Do you like them? Do you see them long term, or is this not really a group you want to stick with?
well, I've always really liked Dable. Like that team 3 years ago had no business getting as far as they did. That team won a playoff game, and
Yeah.
they were projected to be a 3 to 4 win team. I still think part of that is the culture that he changed. I just think there's a lack of talent on the roster.
Hmm.
But I don't think it's that the GM has been doing a horrible job.
I
Like,
don't think the process has been that bad.
yeah, obviously the Saquon letting him walk for nothing is the biggest thing, but he's still a running back.
I'm
He's a
not
running
gonna be
back.
mad at you for espousing a take that the rest of the NFL has had for a decade now, and honestly, is probably still mostly correct. There's just a few exceptions to the rule, like Saquon. I
Yeah,
don't think we can like really get on them about bad process in this scenario. I think we can, I can give the Eagles front office and Howie, their flowers for seeing that and understanding that Saquon, was kind of outside the mold. But yeah, I'm not gonna get really upset at the Giants about that.
and even like the previous drafts, like yeah, Evan Neal is a bust, but there was every single scout, every single source viewed him as the safest tackle in that draft class.
Yeah.
Same thing with Kayvon Thibodeau too. Like he was a very
Everybody
safe.
was all over that. They loved what the Giants did.
Yeah, I personally thought that they drafted safe, but also high up. Like it was a really
Yeah, it
they
was
had a high
great.
draft picks. They took position of values. Like I actually was happier about them than the Jets during that draft.
Yeah,
We both had two top 10 picks,
yeah.
but yeah, it didn't pan out. And I sometimes I feel like the GM's getting a lot like yeah. I'm not saying he should have like a super long leash right now, but the fact that he is a bad 4 game start to the season away from being fired, I think is a little bit
Mhm.
crazy.
All right, let's do a quick couple players, and then we're gonna move on to the Raiders. So just real
Well,
quick,
actually,
Dexter Lawrence, part of the long-term vision or not?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, he definitely is.
27, you got enough of a runway there. I think I'm getting worried once you hit 30, but I think on the timeline we talked about, if things work out with Dart, then yeah, I think he's sticking around. Um, anybody else you think is really kind of questionable there, or are we good to move on to the Raiders? How about Burns? You think Burns is a long-term piece, or do you think he's now a little bit expendable?
I think he's a little bit expendable because
Okay.
he is. I think is he 29 at this point? Oh, he's only 27. Oh no, I think
I could see making the case that like you just really ride that strength of your team and you don't let it deplete.
yeah. I
Okay.
think oh yeah, you don't need to trade him, but
Yeah. All right. Let's hit the Raiders. This is a very interesting team. This is a team that has tried to make a lot of win now moves out of pretty terrible situations for years and years, and now they're kind of doing it again this offseason, but they're doing it a little more subtle of a way. Um, how do you feel about Pete Carroll's Raiders? What sort of timeline do you think they're on?
right now I really do not like what they're currently doing
Okay.
just because they're tr once again I think they're kind of in a more similar boat to the Giants, but worse. Like they're trying
Well,
to
yeah. Where's your
accelerate.
blue chips? I mean,
Yeah.
outside of Bowers.
Well, that's the thing. I do actually think they do have some blue chips. I mean, Max Crosby is one. Uh, Genti, I'm assuming will be.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I think they do have some like pieces of that high-end talent. Just they have a lot of guys who shouldn't even like be on a roster starting.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and they're trying to win now and it like I'm just going through their roster. Like they're starting Devin White
Yeah.
as their premier linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, and so the Eagles linebacker room turned out better last year than we thought it would. But this was an Eagles team that was like desperately searching for answers at linebacker, and he couldn't make the roster. I,
Jeremiah Trotter made a roster for him,
yeah,
and it wasn't even close. Like, yeah, it's
it's the defense is scary. Not scary for Raiders fans, not the league. Yeah. All right, yeah. So what do you think window wise? Do you think this is like? Do you think they can get this going within the next couple of years? I mean, I think it's undoubtable that it has to be, you know, a 2 year window if this idea philosophy of the team is gonna work out. But do you think that's viable, or do you think this is more of a like rip it down, long term build plan if you're running the team?
if I'm running the team, yeah, I would rip it down at this
Okay.
point, especially Max Crosby. I still think he is good. I know I'm higher on him than you are, but I think at this point, no matter how high I am on him, he's too old to be
Yeah.
there under the current window,
Yeah.
and too valuable too. You can get
Right.
all for
That's
him.
part of the scenarios. You got to be realistic about just how much you can get out of these guys and how much it would help accelerate a rebuild. Okay. Yeah. So we think they're longer out, big stretch. Like it kind of depends on how fast you can turn around when you do a couple when you have good drafts. But yeah. All right. Stance on the coach and front office. You like this? Do you like them as a bridge at least? To kind of move on, or do you think it's a problem?
I think it's okay as a bridge. I think Pete Carroll's. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl. That's really all you can ask for right now. Like for a bridge coach, I don't think he's gonna ruin culture. I don't think he's gonna start anything up. But I think if you're just trying, if you're really rebuilding, I think he's the perfect guy to have.
So my only problem with it is that I don't know that he and Spytech are good with the idea of being bridges. I don't think they're gonna embrace that, and so I think you're kind of gonna end up playing tug of war with them if you want to, go through a rebuild. And as a result, I don't know that I'm on board with using them to bridge. I think with them, you kind of just have to jump in and try to compete, which we both agree isn't really the right path.
Yeah, I think the Raiders right now really, the ownership, including Tom Brady, do not really know what direction they want to go in, and I think they're trying to balance it out where they're still trying to be competitive, but also like they are trying to build a future. They're trying to build the brand right now too. I
Hmm.
feel like that was a large part of the Genti draft. Like you were drafting him to rejuvenate the fan base, and this isn't winning football, in my opinion. What it really comes down to, like, both of us were Eagles Chiefs fans. We've seen a Super Bowl pretty
Yeah.
recently in our lifetime, and a large part of our podcast, what we really want to focus on is what it takes to really win it all. And large part of what the Raiders are doing right now isn't that. It's
Yeah.
make money, which I it makes sense for an owner, but I kind of think that's kind of where the Carroll Sonny comes in. Because I feel like you could go both ways with it somewhat,
Hmm.
where he's won a Super Bowl before. If you're trying to win now, he's definitely not the worst option out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's a lot to be desired with like getting a young offensive play caller to build up if you were going to rebuild. I mean, they got Chip Kelly, whether you take that how you will, but
Yeah. I mean, so okay, we were talking about the Jets and kind of the Giants as being teams that are kind of in the position to do the we're going to be a really good team with, finding different quarterbacks, and then once we find our real franchise quarterback, we're going to lock him in and we're going to take off, we're going to shoot to the stars. We're going to pull the Chiefs, add Patrick Mahomes or some other uber talented quarterback to this roster whenever we find them, whenever that opportunity presents itself. The Raiders aren't there obviously, and I think that's the one kind of like that's where you could insert Pete Carroll as a bridge coach, and because then you're really it's all about trying to win. You need the players to be totally bought into the idea of yeah, we're trying to win now, like and all that, and just try to make it as one of those margin teams without a real quarterback to take you there. But I just yeah, the conditions they're in right now, you're right. I don't think they're approaching this with the right process. I don't think they're that aware, or either they're either not very aware, or they don't care that they're not really set up to do this right now. So yeah, I don't think this is the right path, coach, front office wise. So okay, do we want to talk a little bit about if Pete Carroll and Spytek were bought into the idea of kind of burning this thing up a little bit and moving some pieces and things and trying to, kind of really set off a rebuild. How would you go about it? What are you targeting?
So it's tough to do on offense because you just did the Geno move and you're kind of backed into a corner
Hmm.
there with the current QB situation. But I also think Geno is a talented QB. He's had success in Seattle. He's shown flashes in Seattle. I mean, he's a gunslinger. And so I don't think you would probably move away from him, but I think it really comes down to the defense and just getting value out of all those pieces right now who are older. Like Christian Wilkins, I'm not sure how much value he has around the league currently, but I feel like he's a guy who doesn't fit the current window well. I mean, we talked about earlier, Crosby. You can still get a king's ransom for him, but truth is,
Well,
they don't have.
the only problem is they extended Crosby
Oh,
this
they did.
offseason.
Okay.
So you can't move him this offseason, and it's probably pretty ugly to move him next offseason, but you could probably do it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they're
I don't know if you're really getting the return by next offseason. This could fall off fast.
it's
Good
tough.
on him for getting paid.
Yeah, no, I mean, he put up the numbers. You're gonna get paid, and yeah, and everyone in the locker room talks so positively about him too. So
Yeah.
good for him. But yeah, they're really backed in a corner, like cap wise in terms of that. It's yeah. I mean, they do have Brock Bowers on a rookie contract. They got JPJ too in the draft.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's yeah. I mean, I guess we could go over players now, like in
Okay.
particular.
Yeah, I just think there's a few too many holes. Well, I say a few. There's a lot of holes.
Yeah, there's a lot of holes, and then there's a lot of players who could net value, but they can't because yeah, they're backed into a corner with the current contract situations, and it's tough to rebuild them. It really is.
Yeah.
Which is
So, okay. Yeah, let's roll through some players here. So obviously, assuming G&T pans out and Bowers and Jackson Power Johnson, those are your recent high end, super good draft picks, that are kind of really hopefully are going to be franchise foundation pieces. Don't love having one of those at running back, and the other one being center. Tight end's all right because he kind of plays way more like a power slot.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's tough. How do you feel about Jacoby Myers? You think he's a guy who can stick around a while and be a functional passing game piece headed into a Super Bowl window?
Yeah, I mean, he looked very impressive last year. He got over 1,000 yards,
Yep.
which very nice for an offense that really wasn't moving the ball well. Always has looked good in New England too. Uh, I think he's a good number two, and I think he's perfectly fine under his current contract. I think he's fine staying around there. Just Geno needs weapons still.
Hmm.
I just think right now they should be focusing on getting that elite weapon, probably a receiver more like.
Be nice if you still added Devontae Adams.
Yeah, it really would.
I mean I that's a
Yeah.
little disingenuous because I don't think he fits because I think the defense is still too bad that even if you had Devontae Adams on this current roster, I don't think you're looking at the proper conditions to go ahead and kick off that Super Bowl competition window now. Um, but yeah, I mean I liked adding Jeremy Chin to the defense. But there's a lot of holes. I mean, it's really even hard to pick out besides Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, who we've already talked about a little bit. Like, do you see any of these guys as long-term pieces, as guys you're really, or even if you don't, just give me guys like you think have a shot at it, like of being serious parts of a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, it really is just the rookies or I guess second year players now.
Yeah.
I feel like
So I like
yeah,
Darian. I like getting Darian Porter as a rookie. I think maybe he turns into something for you. Nice corner. I will say maybe they just get the best play out of Eric Stokes, and he's got another level there that we haven't seen. And I think that would certainly be a very solid corner and definitely good enough to have on a Super Bowl contending team. But yeah, it's the back seven is rough.
yeah. And a thing we didn't really consider yet about them is the division that they play in. They have to deal with the Chiefs, who
Yep.
have an amazing roster, amazing coaches. You have the Chargers, who have the coaches and are building that roster up, who have the QB too, obviously. Then you have the Broncos. They have the coach. They have a good young team. And then you have the Raiders, who have
Yeah.
some pieces here and there.
It's a tough
That
place to live.
like I think you could actually make the case that like Geno isn't might be the worst starting QB in that division. I don't know. I would probably put Bo Nix ahead of him currently, but Geno's also 34.
It's yeah.
They have probably the worst QB or like near the worst QB and worst head coach in a division. And the roster's the worst too.
Yeah. It's it's
It's
it's a bad place to be, especially when they think they're gonna kind of contend. I think they're a real long shot at the playoffs. I don't think that's happening this year, and I think well we'll see where that goes. I am curious if they can't get this winning to see just how long of a leash Pete Carroll gets. I think that's gonna be fascinating how long they ride that. Uh, I feel like Tom Brady's influence on the building is going to lead to, more time given to coaches, and they were already fairly lenient, and gave a lot of time. But yeah. All right. Okay. So that's how we feel about the Raiders. Any other players you want to talk about, or
uh I guess we could talk about Colton Miller for a little bit
okay?
because
Yeah.
he's been an underrated tackle around the league for a decent time now. He's 29, but like is he's 29 and the team will not be winning in the next okay, I know they think they will, but I think we both agreed they're probably not contending for at least 3 years. Do you actually ship him off?
I don't think you can do it now. I think you got too much money in Ginty to do that. No, I'm sorry, not Ginty. I totally misspoke. Gino. I think you got too much money in Gino to ship him. Plus, you just can't get your hands on left tackles, dude. I ask me how I know.
Yeah.
you know, you you cannot find them anywhere. I definitely don't think you ship him this offseason. It's too late. Like
Yeah.
there's no recourse this offseason unless if someone's going to ship you a left tackle for him, which never happens. So, yeah, I think you would be waiting until next offseason to do it, but I don't think it makes that much sense. I think you hope and pray that he's kind of a guy who can play to 33, 34, maybe 35, and he lasts, and then you can worry about a bridge later. Um, but I'm not super optimistic about that. I could be wrong, but I don't think the 6'8" super tall guys have aged all that well generally
Yeah.
because when that foot speed slows down, they're already typically not on the good end of that, and then the foot speed slows down and they can't make it up the arc very well, and the back stuff I think can become a serious issue for those older tackles, um, and that's just
Well,
exacerbated by being that size. So,
yeah. I'm just
um,
looking at the depth chart. They have Parker Clemens currently on the depth chart at right tackle.
yeah,
The Virginia Tech tackle who
yeah,
had I think he let up like 11 or 12 sacks last year.
yeah. It's
He if he's about to make a roster, you're not in a good spot.
Yeah,
Like,
I would really like to see them continue to stockpile offensive linemen. I think they're in a reasonably good spot right now. Um, but yeah, I think more depth is good, especially with aging Colton Miller. Having a really nice swinging tackle would be good, and I don't think Munford or Grant necessarily do that for you. Okay, that wrap up the Raiders for us.
yeah, I think
Okay,
we
cool. So we got one little fun little exercise here at the end. We're gonna Tyler and I are going to pick our favorite team out of the mix of these five. So like, who would we want to take over ownership of if we had the ability to? Um, and so just purely from a football perspective, not from a business or a location uh, marketing perspective, just on the field football. What team would we want to inherit if we were given the opportunity? You wanna lead us off, Tyler?
Yeah, out of all these teams, I think the one I will choose and that I will want to take over the most, but I feel like I could do the most fun things with, is actually the Jets.
Yep.
Like they do have a lot of enticing young players. Don't think we mentioned about it, but Garrett Wilson is a talented receiver. He's in line for a payday. We don't know how much he's going to get, but the Jets' focus right now is going into next offseason is obviously QB, but also getting that secondary weapon. Devontae Adams did not work out as expected. Could make the case that was also Aaron Rodgers had a lot of uh, influence on that, but I still think right now at the Jets, you're really trying to get that either primary or secondary weapon in next year's draft. Uh, and also just filling out the roster, the rest of it. Because I think what they have right now is really good. They have a good mix of high-end talent and some depth too at certain positions.
hmm
Like, I know now it's thinned out, but their linebacker depth over the past couple of years has been really, really nice. And I mean, they paid
Well, you got
Sherwood.
Sherwood, yeah. So.
Yeah, but I kind of do like how the Jets keep on investing into depth too,
hmm
and a lot of, especially in the trenches. But yeah, no, I kind of like what they've been doing this past year.
hmm Yeah, yeah. That's you really just have to frame the Jets because there's been a lot of really poor decision making, bad structure, bad process in the past. But this past year, just this past year, it's been pretty nice. I like what they're doing. Yeah, Jets would have been my pick too. I think I'm in for the other four. My pick would be the Seahawks. I don't love it. I don't love the defensive coach, and I don't love the spot I'm at with what would probably be pretty good rotating brain drain out of the OC spot. I think hiring that over and over again would become a little difficult. Um, but McDonald does bring something pretty special to the defense, and he has the tools to work with it now. And I think you could have a pretty fun team there. I think influencing them a little bit more to invest in some of the offense and kind of bring players over there, and let McDonald work with a little bit less on the defensive end would be a good idea in the future. But I think they're on the right path to being a nice, solid NFL team that if they figure out the quarterback situation, if they figure out, you know, some impact players, some players kind of reach that height, then you're working with something that could be special. So, yep. All right. Any other thoughts on these teams, Tyler? Or are we good to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we're good to wrap it up.
Okay. Um, feel like it's been a pretty good first episode. Glad to get it rolling. Hopefully Austin will be able to join us in the future. And we'll get that going. But yeah, I'm looking forward to more episodes down the line, more topics. We're gonna be figuring that out shortly, and hopefully getting episodes coming out pretty regularly. If you like this content, if you're watching this content, please give us a like and a subscribe. Come hang out with us. Send comments. I'm sure one of us will answer for sure. And yeah, I don't know if we start getting people actually watching this thing, we might be able to do a few fun interactions and things like mailbags or stuff like that. So, yep. All right. It's been a good episode. We'll see you in the future.